good morning, and welcome to the Africa Weekly Talk. Today's subject on the docket is the relevance and importance of a country's natural resources to its citizens and its socio-economic development, and how the leadership of that country also harnesses these natural resources in order for them to use these resources to help them in their socio-economic development that ends up benefiting the citizens in its standard of living and also improving the social welfare of the citizens of that country. But fellows, today's subject on the docket has to do with Nigeria's Nnpcl, the main Nigerian oil company owned by Nigeria federal government, and its alleged decision to terminate the Naira for crude deal that was negotiated by local oil refineries, including Dangote oil refinery, last year in October, for these local oil refineries to be able to buy this crude oil in the local currency of the Naira instead of the foreign currency of the dollar, in order not to put too much stress on the Naira. And it is out of this alleged decision by the Nnpcl also that forced the Nnpcl to come out swiftly and deny these allegations that it had terminated that last year's Naira for crude deal, but rather it is renegotiating with these local refineries on this deal, because the deal expired a couple of weeks ago, which is March. So now they are on the renegotiating table now to renegotiate the deal that involved Dangote oil refinery and other local refineries. Now, fellows, before I dive into this subject today and give you my take on this issue, I came across a very brilliant, smart dude, who pretty much knows a lot about this Nigeria crude oil industry, where he talked about what has been going on for the past 6 months with regards to Nnpcl and the Dangote oil refinery. Because of the size of Dangote oil refinery, so basically it's the main negotiator between Nnpcl and these local refineries. So let's go ahead and hear what this guy, I think his name is Kevin, have to say with regards to what has been going on for the past 6 months. And I'll come back and dissect this whole thing. Let's go ahead and hear what Kevin has to say. Very interesting stuff. Very bright guy.
Specifics again. From what you know, what percentage of Dangote crude comes from Nnpcl and what comes from where it buys from outside the country? I need that answer if you can.
Geoff, I'll tell you, anywhere around 91.5 to 92% of the crude that is used in Lagos today to refine PMS, that he uses to supply the markets in Nigeria and also export, comes from outside Nigeria. He imports it. He has to source from outside this Naira-based crude swap. Nnpc is not contributing up to 10% of what he's using today to refine. I can tell you that.
So this means that he's buying crude in dollars and selling in Naira. And selling the
He's buying crude in dollars he's buying crude in dollars and selling in Naira, which invalidates the whole narrative that the federal government has, that the president issued a Naira-based crude swap and is providing Dangote with crude oil in Naira based on domestic crude supply obligation in sections 109 to stabilize the exchange rates. You can see the impacts of not just the harmonized reporting on net open positions and the creation of an FM market in foreign exchange by the CBN, but you can also see the impact that the supply, the consistency of supply, and the impact Dangote has had with reducing how much of petrol that is imported into Nigeria has had on the exchange rates, which is good. Mm-hmm. So any attempt to scuttle that and ensure that more than 90%, which is what is currently doing, of what he uses to refine is consistently brought in from the US, from Algeria, is brought in from maybe Angola and other parts of the world, it's going to have an adverse effect on the exchange rates.
All right, fellas. So you just had a little snippet of Kevin talking about the importance of this Naira for crude deal that right now pretty much is being suspended due to the renegotiating that is going on between Nnpcl and Dangote and other local refineries. That's a very brilliant dude. He knows his stuff. I mean, he analyzes things very well. But unfortunately, the saddest truth about this whole deal is that now Dangote has also threatened that he cannot no longer sell his processed PMS to the local suppliers in Naira. As far as he's not getting the crude from the Nnpcl in Naira deal, then he has to be forced also to sell to these local suppliers in dollars. And I don't blame Dangote for that. That is why on my take on this particular issue, I've said it and I've said it clearly, that Dangote should never subsidize or discount to Nigeria when it comes to selling PMS to the Nigerian government or the public. As far as the Nnpcl sells to Dangote in dollars, or Dangote has to go outside Nigeria to buy crude in dollars, he should never discount his prices to Nigerian citizens and the government of Nigeria, period. And the reason being that when a country has natural resources like crude, any kind of natural resources, those natural resources belong to the citizens of that country. And the country has to do everything possible to make sure that its citizens benefits from these natural resources. That is why the Naira for crude deal was basically for the citizens of Nigeria to benefit from Dangote's oil refinery PMS sales to Nigeria, as well as the jet fuel and so on, to all Nigerians locally. Because this Naira for crude deal was mainly for only local refineries. It was not meant for foreign refineries, meant for local. Because so that in that case, when you sell this crude to the local refineries in Naira, that also releases the stress on the Naira, the local currency. Because that means they have to pay Naira for this crude oil. They don't have to go out and look for dollars to pay it in the foreign currency, which is the dollar, for crude. So that releases a lot of tension, stress on the local currency. And in the long run, it helps also stimulate the economy, because the economy doesn't depend on too much foreign currency, which is the dollar, to buy this crude oil. But unfortunately, if you look at what is going on, it's been going on since Dangote came online in this refinery in Nigeria. There's still cabal, the oil oligarchs in Nigeria, who have been doing everything possible to make sure that Dangote really fails. Look, fellas, I'm a strong advocate in competition. I believe in competition. I don't believe in monopoly. I understand, yes, the oil industry is more like a fiat deregulation law that Nigerians passed some years ago to deregulate the Nigerian oil industry, which is a good thing. That is what pretty much brought about Dangote oil refinery. So it's also a good thing for the Nigerian oil industry also to be importing crude oil PMS into Nigeria, as far as it's good business for them. That also helps in stabilizing prices and also bringing prices down. So it's good to have different avenues of PMS coming in from different angles. It doesn't matter whether Dangote produces it in Nigeria or importers import to Nigeria. That's a good thing. As far as it goes to benefit the citizens of Nigeria, that's the most important thing. And the quality of what they are importing also goes to benefit the citizens of Nigeria. But what is going on is this. Since Dangote refinery, you can tell clearly that there's been this cabal that have been trying to do everything to make sure that Dangote fails. And in the past couple of months, knowing what has been going on with regards to oil petrol prices in Nigeria. You know, Dangote has been reducing these petrol prices. I mean, he's reduced them within about 3 or 4 times now. I think even within about a month or a year, he reduced them 3 times. And these importers also know that by importing petroleum products, petrol from outside, they have to make sure that they have to make their money. And with Dangote constantly reducing prices, that is also affecting their business and their profit margins. So for Nnpc, even though Nnpc is saying that this deal was 6 months, was a 6-month deal, so it ended in March, and therefore they have to renegotiate the deal. So I get all of that. But you can also tell that when you are dealing with a cabal, I mean, you're dealing with an oligarchy that have been in this business for years, and this is how they've been eating for so many years. And all of a sudden, you have a giant like Dangote coming in and eating into their margins and more or less disrupting their business. They are not going to go down quietly. These guys are going to fight tooth and nail. And that is what is pretty much happening right now in Nigeria with regards to what Nnpc and the OICs and all that entities doing in Nigeria. So basically, they are not going to lie down for Dangote to just roll over them. Even though what Dangote is doing is to help benefit the Nigerian citizens. These people, their business is about making money. And they have been making all this money in this oil sector in Nigeria for about since the inception of Nigeria, discovery of crude oil in Nigeria. And then they're not going to go down quietly. So they're going to fight tooth to nail to make sure that Dangote doesn't succeed. But unfortunately for these people, Dangote has all this time succeeding. Dangote is now exporting to outside Nigeria, exporting to America, exporting to Saudi Arabia, exporting to Europe, exporting to Asia. So Dangote has a lot of markets right now, and all across Africa. Angola is sending him crude, he's buying crude from America, and so on and so forth. So Dangote really right now can survive without the Nigerian market because he has other markets that he can supply to at a reasonably good prices for those countries. And they are ready to buy Dangote oil products. So Dangote don't have a problem. The problem is that these local importers, realizing the importance of Dangote reducing prices affected their profit margins. I don't know if they are in cahoots with Nnpc, which I will be surprised, to make sure that Dangote doesn't get this Naira for crude deal. You see, if it had come to the other local refineries, they don't have a problem with that. Because other local refineries are not a threat to them. Because how much can they refine? Not that much. But Dangote is a problem because Dangote has a 650,000 barrel a day refinery. So basically, he can refine and he can kill their business, and they know that. And he's been gradually killing their business. By the end of the day, who does it benefit? It goes to benefit the citizens of Nigeria. That is what matters. Like I said earlier, that fiat deregulation that Nigeria has is a good thing for Nigeria. For importers to import as much as they want. It doesn't matter how much they import. As far as a fair deal, as far as it benefits the citizens of Nigeria, because more competition is good for the citizens of Nigeria. It brings prices down, which is a good thing. And that is what Dangote has also been doing. As a competitor, you also have to make sure that he sells at a very reasonable price to ward off his competitors. And since he's been doing that, that is, unfortunately, that's exactly around that time also that Nnpc came out with this press release that now they are now renegotiating the deal between Dangote and the Nnpc, and therefore, even though they have suspended it, and Dangote has to go outside of Nigeria right now to buy crude to come and sell, process and sell to Nigerians. And he's also saying that, look, hold on, fellas, I cannot buy crude in dollars from the US, from other parts of the world, and bring it to Nigeria and turn it into PMS and then sell it to these local suppliers in Naira. Because it doesn't make business sense for him, which makes sense. Because at the end of the day, if he's buying them in dollars, they have to make sure, due to the fluctuation of the dollar to the Naira rate in Nigeria, to make sure that he doesn't lose on this end. So definitely you have to sell them in dollars to make sure he recoups his money. So if the Nigerian government and the citizens of Nigeria want Dangote to be able to sell to them and for them to get that discount that they've been getting from Dangote, then they have to put the pressure on their government to make sure that that Naira for crude deal does not go anywhere. Because that Naira for crude deal is the best deal for the Nigerian citizens. At the end of the day, that Naira for crude deal gives Dangote the leverage for him to be able to sell at a very good price for the citizens of Nigeria. But if he has to travel outside and import crude from the US, Angola, Algeria, he's not paying them in Naira. He has to pay these countries in the dollar. And as far as he pays them in dollars, he has to make sure he recoups his money. So he cannot come down to Nigeria and subsidize or sell it at a discount to the citizens of Nigeria. And Dangote should never also sell to Nigeria at a discount as far as he's importing crude to come and process in Nigeria. He should never do that. It is up to the citizens of Nigeria to hold their country accountable, their leaders accountable, to hold the government of Nigeria accountable. If they want Dangote to be able to process PMS and sell it to them at a very reasonable price, then the citizens of Nigeria have to wake up and hold their leaders accountable to make sure that Naira for crude deal doesn't go away. Because if that Naira for crude deal goes away, I'm sorry, Dangote has to go with the market. And as far as the market goes up and comes down, he has to go either way. If it comes down, he might sell at a reasonable price. If it goes up, he has to. And if he's buying it in dollars, I'm sorry, fellas, that is what he has to do. $21 billion oil refinery is a lot of money to pay for. That's not a charity organization. That is a for-profit entity. And Dangote Oil Refinery has to do everything possible to make sure that he recoups his money to pay for that $21 billion that he's borrowed. So don't blame Dangote. And that is what pretty much Nnpc, I know in cahoots with these oil cabals in Nigeria, they will try everything possible to make sure that, to make their cronies benefit from a deal in essence that will more or less head Dangote. But at the end of the day, it is the Nigerian citizens who are going to be on the hook. If Nnpc decides to scrap this deal that has been going on for the past 6 months, Dangote is not going to be on the hook on this deal. Dangote has a lot of avenues to export crude, processed petroleum products, PMS, jet fuel, and so on, to all over the world. He already has the market to do that. And countries are craving for him to export to them. So Dangote is at the level right now that he doesn't really need Nigeria market to survive. But it's good for him because he wants to help the citizens of Nigeria and to help the socioeconomic development of Nigeria. That is why he's been doing everything possible to make it sure that the PMS price in Nigeria doesn't go up, rather to help the citizens of Nigeria. But it's up to the citizens of Nigeria also to hold their leaders accountable. Because this Naira for crude deal, first of all, the crude belongs to the citizens of Nigeria. There's no way any country that has natural resources that belongs to that country and its citizens shouldn't be able to use that resources to benefit and help develop that country. That is how it's supposed to be. That is why it is the responsibility of the citizens of Nigeria to wake up and hold the leaders of their country accountable to make sure that this Naira for crude deal stays in place. Because at the end of the day, that's the best deal for Nigeria. That is the best deal for Nigerian citizens. But as far as the Naira for crude deal stays in place, then Dangote can be able, and the other local refineries can also be able to sell PMS at a reasonable price to these local suppliers for them also to supply the citizens of Nigeria. But if that deal goes away, I'm sorry, fellas, he has no choice but to what? Sell it according to the rate of how much he's buying the crude from the United States or in the international market and so on and so forth. I mean, that is not his fault because he's into this business to make money. He's not into this business as a charity. He's not responsible for the citizens of Nigeria to live well. He's playing his part by helping Nigeria in its socio-economic development. But it is the responsibility of the government of Nigeria to its citizens to make sure that its citizens have a better standard of living. It is not the responsibility of a private businessman who is into the business to make money for the citizens of a country to have a better life. It's good for them to contribute to that. But at the end of the day, the responsibility of that lies on the heads of the leaders of that country, which is the government of the country. And that is what I hope the citizens of Nigeria will know and put pressure and make sure that this crude naira for crude deal, I mean, this deal should not even be based on 6 months, 2 months, 1 year, 2 year contract deals. This is something that should be there forever. See, but unfortunately, Nnpc has what they call forward sale. They've sold a lot of this crude to foreign oil companies and foreign countries and stuff. So more or less, whatever they are taking out now is paying for what they've already received money for, which is okay. But they still have the responsibility, whatever they are taking out, to make sure that goes to help the local refineries, so it also goes to benefit the citizens of Nigeria. I mean, that's how it's supposed to be, fellas. I mean, at the end of the day, like I said, Dangote has so much markets right now. I mean, especially in light with what is going on right now. The US will buy some PMS from him, buy some jet fuel from him. Saudi Arabia is buying jet fuel. Singapore is buying some. Heathrow, London is buying some. I mean, all across Africa. So he doesn't need the Nigerian market right now. But as a Nigerian and as a good patriot of Nigeria, he's doing everything possible to make sure that Nigeria benefits from this great investment. And at the end of the day, the Nigerian citizens have to help him on that. They have to hold their leaders accountable. They are the ones who have to help Dangote to succeed. Because Dangote would never succeed without the backbone of the citizens of Nigeria. Because at the end of the day, the crony capitalists and the oil cabals, their goal is to make sure that he feels. They don't give a damn about the citizens of Nigeria. It is only Dangote who cares about the citizens of Nigeria. So fellas, if you believe in helping Nigeria develop, then hold your leaders accountable and make sure that this oil naira for crude deal stays in place so that it benefits the citizens of Nigeria. I mean, that's the best thing that can happen for the citizens. As far as this deal stays in place, then hey, they don't have a problem. As far as this deal stays in place, I mean, Dangote will do his best. But if this deal, like they say, they are renegotiating the terms of the deal, whatever, at the end of the day, they are always going to be crony capitalists, the oil cabals, all these interests that have been eating from these deals for years. They are not going to go down quietly. They will fight tooth to nail to make sure that everything that goes on be so difficult for Dangote to survive. But Dangote has already survived. Like I said earlier, he has already survived, and he doesn't have a problem with the Nigerian market. He has international market also. So he can turn to America, turn to other African countries, and he'll be good. Because at the end of the day, he's also producing a very quality PMS for the world. So fellas, hopefully this deal goes on and gives the Nnpc the opportunity to also negotiate with these local refineries that will end up benefiting the citizens of Nigeria. But at the end of the day, I strongly believe that Dangote also should never discount or subsidize for the citizens of Nigeria as far as he doesn't get the naira for crude deal in place. No local refinery should subsidize or sell at a discount to suppliers in Nigeria if they are paying for crude or importing crude from outside of Nigeria and paying in dollars. No local refinery, same as Dangote oil refinery, should ever discount or subsidize. It's only up to the Nigerian citizens If they want a good deal, they have to hold their leadership accountable for that. And that's the only way that things will work better for them in their socio-economic development. So, fellas, this is all I have for today. If it's Sunday, it's the Africa Weekly Talk. God bless you guys and have a great week. Thank you guys, and peace and love.